Well, in the parallel accounts of this in the other Gospels, we learn that Jesus and his disciples are in the city of Capernaum, and the disciples actually began disputing among themselves which one of them will be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. They each thought that they would be the greatest. And this was something that the apostles seemed to argue over often. In fact, on one occasion, the mother of James and John came to Jesus and asked that in the kingdom her two sons would be seated, one on the left side of Jesus and one on the right side of Jesus. So even the apostles' moms were getting involved. And, you think soccer moms are bad. You have an apostle's mom. And so they couldn't settle this argument. And so the apostles decide to ask Jesus, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? It's funny to me that they would ask Jesus, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Because Jesus is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, not any of those apostles. The Bible tells us in heaven, Jesus will receive all the glory, honor, and power. And so it's kind of a foolish question to ask Jesus. I wish that Jesus would have said to the apostles, duh, me, not any of you. Jesus doesn't rebuke the apostles for asking this question. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, but we need to know what greatness is in the kingdom of heaven, or how does God define greatness in his kingdom. And I can tell you, greatness in the kingdom of heaven is the opposite of greatness in this world. In the world, the greatest is the person who achieves the highest distinction. It's the person who beats out everyone else. It's the person with the most wins or the most sales, the greatest success. That's not how greatness is defined in the kingdom of heaven. Jesus illustrates what greatness is by calling to himself and setting a child and setting this child in the midst of the apostles. And then he says in verse 3, assuredly I say to you, unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. First of all, Jesus tells us how to enter the kingdom of heaven. Before you can be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, you have to gain entrance to the kingdom of heaven. And people have all kinds of ideas about how one gets into heaven. Some people think everyone goes to heaven as long as you're a good, decent person. You'll get in. Here, Jesus tells us what is required to gain entrance into heaven. And Jesus is the one who knows how to get into heaven. So we want to listen to what he says. The most important thing in all of our lives is where we will spend eternity. The Bible says that this life is a vapor. It's very, very brief, especially compared to eternity. Even if you live for 80 or 90 years, that's nothing compared to eternity. And where you spend eternity is more important than anything else in your life. And Jesus tells us how to gain entrance into the kingdom of heaven here. He says, first of all, you must be converted. Look at verse 3. Unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Jesus said, unless you are converted, you have no chance of going to heaven. Well, what does it mean to be converted? Well, the word converted means literally to turn around or to change course. If you're driving on the interstate and at some point in your trip you realize you're going the wrong direction, what do? Well, you turn around. You take the next exit, you cross over the overpass, and get back on the interstate going back the opposite direction, the right direction. You convert. That's conversion. To convert means to turn around. It means to change course. Jesus said to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must be converted. You must come to the point in your life where you realize you're on the wrong road and you're not headed to heaven and you need to turn around. You make a course correction in your life and you turn your life to Jesus Christ and you start moving toward Him. You must be converted. And this statement applies to everyone, no matter who you are, because we're all on the wrong road before we come to Christ. Our lives were all heading the wrong direction. We all needed to turn around and get on the right road. We needed to be converted. The Bible says that we all sin, that there's none righteous, no, not one. Everyone has turned to his own way instead of going God's way. And so we all needed to be converted. Look at verse 3 again and read carefully what it says. Unless you are converted, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Conversion is not an option if you want to go to heaven. It's the first step to entering the kingdom of heaven. And so have you taken that first step? Have you been converted? Was there a point in your life that you made a course correction and turned from the direction you were going and turned to Jesus Christ by faith? You must be converted and become like little children to enter the kingdom of heaven. You know, little children have a very simple trust. You know, take the child in this passage. When Jesus called this child to come to Him, the child immediately came to Jesus without any hesitation, just trusting and obeying Jesus. When Jesus called him to come, the child didn't ask a bunch of questions of Jesus before he came. He didn't say, "Why do I have to come to you?" He didn't say, "Well, what will you make me do if I come to you?" The child didn't ask for more time before he came to Jesus. He didn't say, "Well, I'm not ready to come to you yet. Let me have a little time. Let me think about it." He didn't say to Jesus, "I don't think I have to come to you. I think I'm fine right here. And I think I can just stay right here." The little child didn't make excuses as to why he couldn't come to Jesus. He didn't ignore Jesus when Jesus called him. He didn't refuse to come. No, the little child immediately responded when Jesus called him. He obeyed His voice and he came to Jesus. And we must become like little children to enter the kingdom of heaven. We must come to Jesus in simple obedience. You know,